In today's rapidly evolving job market, how can companies stay ahead in the race for securing talent? Well, to answer this very question, I've invited Andy Bradshaw, CEO of SHL, to join me on the podcast today. They are a global leader in HR technology and psychometric science, with over 25 years of experience in technology and service industries, including leadership roles at Hewlett-Packard and Microsoft. Andy brings a wealth of knowledge on the intersection of technology, talent, and business performance. And under his leadership, SHL has transformed into a cutting-edge talent intelligence platform that is currently providing workforce insights across 150 countries, leveraging a vast data lake of 45 billion data points. That's right, billion. So in this episode, we're going to explore the pressing challenges and opportunities in early career recruitment, and also explore the strategies companies can use to solve the critical talent problems through internal recruitment, and also the importance of hiring beyond technical skills and focusing on durable human qualities. And also, of course, the celebration of diversity in the workplace and the ethical integration of AI in the recruitment process. So whether you are navigating talent acquisition challenges or looking to future-proof your hiring practices, this conversation promises to offer valuable insights that hopefully will help you drive your organisation forward. Reaching listeners in 165 countries every day is testament to the unwavering support of you, my listeners, and our sponsors, without whom this podcast just simply wouldn't be possible. And it also gives me a chance to talk about the fact that legacy DRM failed to securely enable external collaboration, especially on sensitive files, and how every organisation faces this risk-trust contradiction where they can share content with untrusted third parties, yet expected to protect that data. So it's time for something more modern, a DRM solution that solves that dilemma without compromising security or productivity. And you can do all that with a company called Kiteworks that will enable you to say goodbye to deployment headaches, file transfer risk, collaboration barriers, and productivity constraints, so you can experience a more modern way to collaborate on sensitive content without sacrificing control or security. Please visit kiteworks.com to get started today. That's kiteworks.com to get started today. Now is the moment you've really been waiting for. It's time to get today's guest on. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to the UK, where you can sit down with myself and Andy Bradshaw. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Andy. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. I'm Andy Bradshaw. I'm the CEO of SHL. I'll tell you a little bit about myself and maybe a little bit about the business as well. I've spent pretty much all of my career in technology businesses. So the first half was with a couple of the big book guys, Hewlett-Packard and Microsoft. And then the second half was more sort of mid-sized technology-based businesses that are going through some form of transformation. What I enjoy is how technology can really positively impact both people and also businesses, and obviously having the ability to lead organizations through that change, which is similar to what I've done at SHL. For those that don't know SHL actually is a business that has its roots in assessments, so assessing people for jobs. But we've actually gone through quite a significant transformation, and now SHL is the world's leading talent intelligence platform. So we use assessments and software to provide insight into the workforce. We do that globally in 150 countries, about 6,000 customers, and somewhere around 45 billion data points on people in the workforce, which is probably the largest data lake of any organization around people in the workforce.
Every day on this podcast, I always try and talk about a different area of how technology is impacting it. And I suspect we don't always think about technology and recruitment or the impact that it's having. And I also know another topic very close to your heart is the social and business impact of early career recruitment. So I'm curious, from everything you're seeing here, how are you seeing this shaping the employment landscape, particularly in the context of this rapidly changing job market and tech talent shortages? There's so much going on, isn't it?
No, I think that's absolutely right. And I always find it fascinating because, as you said, technology, it has influenced so many parts of business and social lives. But when it comes to sort of the workforce, it's used less. Customers have got CRM systems and they know everything about their customers, where they visit, what they do, when they do it. But when you think about the workforce, there's not a lot of that type of data. And it's often manager reviews or something like that. So I think there's this whole wave of insight around the workforce, both for hiring and for sort of talent management, that we're about to embark upon, because organizations are rapidly changing now and needing to make decisions very quickly in a rapidly changing environment. So having some more data in terms to enable them to make those decisions, I think, is a natural evolution. And that's very similar to what's happening in early careers. I think early careers now is more important than ever for businesses and organizations. I mean, if you think about it, there's some huge themes that are still happening in the marketplace. The war for talent continues to rage on. I was reading an article just last week, actually, where there's a gap in the global workforce equivalent to the population of Germany. So by 2030, that will be a gap the equivalent of the population of Germany. That's huge. Yeah. I was out in Japan 2 weeks ago. They are actually recruiting thousands of graduates to come into their education markets or into their early careers markets because they don't have the local talent because of the birth rate in Japan. So the war for talent is really driving more and more focus on early careers, but also skills for the future. There's many articles have been written. Again, one that I read recently in Forbes said that by 2030, something like 85% of us will be doing jobs that don't currently exist.
Yeah.
So thinking about skills, thinking about early careers, thinking about how do you look at talent pools rather than just a specific set of skills for a specific job, I think is going to be important. But then there's also the social implications, because people in early careers, I think, have got different expectations now of careers, the need for things like flexible working, the real need for understanding of the culture and values of a business they're going to join, or the purpose and the meaning. Can they do 3 jobs in a corporate and 3 days in a corporate and 2 days in a charity? These are all big decisions, and that the younger generation are now starting to ask of early careers employers.
And I really feel for the younger generation who are at school, college and university ages. As you said there, they're in education, preparing for jobs that don't exist yet. And in some areas of education, the children seem to know more than the educational authority on the speed of technological change. And they're using all these tools all the time, just naturally. So if we do hone in on early recruitment for a moment, what are some of the most significant challenges that you see education and companies facing in early recruitment, and how can they overcome them to ensure that we get top talent out there, and how companies can secure that top talent?
No, I agree. And I think the first thing for companies to recognize, and it's amazing that some still don't, it's that it's a two-way process, recruitment. You and I will probably be familiar with big organizations doing what used to be called in the UK the milk round. You'd be honored to almost be able to talk to them. Yeah. But now a lot of early careers graduates coming into positions, they want more understanding of the role. First of all, they've almost, in order to find out more about me, I need to understand more about you. And that we see a rise in things like internships, where they can actually sample the job for a period of time ahead of the process. When they do get into the process, they want feedback. The process needs to be engaging for them. They switch off very quickly, especially from a technology perspective, if it's a disengaging process. But they also want a good experience. Roughly, we find a third of early careers candidates going through a recruitment process never hear back from the company they've applied for, not even an acknowledgement that they've applied. A third get a straight rejection with absolutely no reason why. But a third who do get through and have a great experience, who may not even get the job, do become advocates. So if you imagine you've got 2/3 of that hiring population who've got a negative feeling about that organization and probably going to tell their friends and other people about that. So understanding it's two-way, understanding the need for experience, I think is what employers and companies need to embrace. I think they also need to embrace the fact that they shouldn't be looking for a graduate to do a specific job or an early careers person to do a specific job. You've got to think beyond that, because you hope that they'd have a career with you. So what are the skills that they could learn? What are their motivation? What is their potential going forward? Is what will enable that person to grow within that organization, and for the organization to get more out of the person. So thinking about skills. And I think the final area, which we'll probably come on to talk about as well, is around diversity and making sure that within the graduate sort of intake, that reflects the society in which they operate. So making sure underrepresented groups are part of that, ensuring the process is fair, reducing the bias in the process, whether that's the language that's used to promote the job, whether that's accessibility in the process. I think organizations need to really get their heads around that to make sure that their early careers populations reflect how they operate and the world in which we operate.
And I also think that many businesses forget about their internal talent, and equally employees from around a business outside of IT have often been used in resources in things like IT projects. They don't see themselves as technical, but have so many transferable skills that can be leveraged. We can teach the tech stuff later. So can you explain how internal recruitment strategies could maybe better address some of these critical talent shortages that we're talking about, and also some of the advantages this approach can offer over some of those external hiring practices that we might see?
No, I totally agree. And it's interesting, actually, since the pandemic, we saw a rise of about 3 or 4 times roles being filled internally rather than externally. So people really promoting what we would call internal talent mobility. And it makes a lot of sense. The stats suggest that once you promote somebody into a different role or move somebody into a different role, that individual is more engaged. It feels like you're working with them to find a great outcome. It also extends their career journey. On average, most people are staying within an organization now 2 years. Obviously, every year beyond that, it reduces hiring costs, increases productivity, accelerates performance, because that individual already has an understanding of the organization in which they operate. I think the other flip side of that as well is that external hiring, when you get it wrong, can cost, not only in terms of dollars to replace, but also the impact it has on other people that work with them or for them. So once you understand what you have internally within your business, it's almost like you understand the individual. It's less risky than going external. But to do that, obviously, you've got to have a really good handle on your internal business. You can't just move people around without thinking through, well, what are their skills? What motivates them? How can they be developed? And all of these things are measurable. So rather than having to take gut feel or instinct, you can measure them and you can bring them together with other data sources around the business. So you've got your job board somewhere, you've got your performance data somewhere else, but then you've got the insight about the individual. If you can bring those things together, then you can have some really high quality talent mobility within your organization, which benefits not only the organization, but also the person.
And another phrase I hear more and more lately is beyond skills. So when it comes to hiring tech talent, what do you think it means to hire beyond skills? And why is this approach becoming increasingly important in the tech industry? Because as I said, it's something we seem to be hearing more and more about.
Yeah, and I think this is a really interesting one. It goes back to whether you're hiring a person for a job today or to be with you tomorrow as well. So if you look at the tech one in particular, a lot of the ads are, I need Java skills. I need something specific. And people measure how good you are at Java coding. And I think that's kind of okay, but it's quite a short-term, narrow view of the world. And interestingly, that has driven up certain types of roles in terms of salary, because everybody's then looking for exactly that same skill set. And it also therefore reduces the kind of hiring pool of people that you can go for. As you said actually earlier, most of the tech skills can be learned or developed.
Yeah.
So we would suggest that actually a better and probably fairer way to approach this is to look at more durable sort of soft skills or human skills, and then educate the hard skills that you need as appropriately afterwards. And that means that the person not only can do hopefully the job today, but they have the ability to do more jobs into the future. We actually did a piece of research going back to the early careers conversation. And we found that for early careers candidates, there's about 11 human skills that are needed to be successful. Things like being able to adapt to change, coping with setbacks, or striving to achieve in the role. So if you can identify the skills within the person, you can then think beyond the current job and figure out not only what they can do today, but also what can they do in the future. And that's as applicable for external hiring as it is internal hiring and internal mobility.
And another problem that I think that every business leader is challenged with is their business needs to serve a diverse audience, and tech teams need to increasingly solve complex problems that require diversity of thought, different ways of thinking and problem solving. And for these reasons alone, I think diversity in the workplace is more than just a buzzword. So I'm curious, from everything that you're seeing here, how do you believe companies can genuinely celebrate and leverage diversity to ultimately drive innovation and drive success?
No, I agree. I think it is more than a buzzword, but I do believe that for many companies, it's a journey.
Yeah,
it's a journey that they're on, and it needs continual focus. I think organizations are moving from talking about diversity to actions, to setting targets, to measuring and reviewing their data, speaking to their people, and also searching for new and different pools of talent. But I think for many, it's not really built into the fabric of their businesses yet, and it's not really how they operate on a day-to-day basis, almost unconsciously doing these things across their business. And therefore, human bias, and whether we like it or not, humans are biased, is still impacting both hiring decisions and talent management decisions. And our view would be organizations would benefit from independent data sources about people that can sit alongside that decision and reduce the bias in the process. We've got a solution that many customers around the world use, and it helps identify individuals who are best suited to fill a role, how well they fit that role. Part of the solution, though, is something that we called hidden gems. So it identifies the people who are the obvious people for the role, but then the hidden gems are the people who they may not have thought of, but actually have the right attributes to be able to be successful at the role. And therefore, we're broadening the talent pool that they're looking at. And that consequently can help in terms of diversity. If there's a good breadth of diverse people within that data set, it means that they don't always go to the obvious person for the role. So we're seeing organizations set goals, measure what they do with data, review their processes to reduce bias through process, but it's also making sure you're investing in tools and insight that enables you to make a fairer decision.
And we have managed to make it 20 minutes of a tech podcast without mentioning AI. But when you mentioned the word bias, it did kind of trigger me to going down that rabbit hole. And with AI playing an increasing role in recruitment, how are you at SHL using things like psychometric science and technology to ensure that AI-driven hiring processes are indeed fair and effective? Because we hear a lot about the bad stuff. So how are you approaching this?
AI's got huge potential, but for us, it has to be used in a positive and ethical way. We think about AI in really three areas of our business. So we build AI into our assessment products in a very transparent way. So for instance, we have a coding solution that looks at somebody's ability to write code. And rather than just hitting compile at the end, and they may have made a small mistake in all of the code that are written, and therefore they fail, we actually use AI to look at the flow of the code as they go through. So even if compile doesn't work at the end, they can still go through the process. And that actually increases the amount of people who go through by about 40%. So because a lot of good coders can still get eliminated through doing things the old way. And that's the same for English language testing and written language testing as well. So there's kind of like AI at the assessment level. We also use AI in what we call the candidate experience. So how can it guide you through the process, almost like a concierge going through the process? Again, going back to the earlier careers conversation, important as part of that overall experience that they've gone through. but also providing structured feedback as they go through. So being able to use multiple data sources to give some feedback to the candidate as they go through the process. But the kind of bigger one for us is the using AI to interpret big data. So we are starting to gather tens of thousands of data points for some of our individual customers. And they're obviously asking us, well, how can I answer questions off the back of it? What are the skills that I'm missing in my workforce? And who could be a successor for this role? So we're using AI to do interpretation of that data, again, to help support hiring and also sort of talent management decisions. But the AI, as I said, needs to be transparent. We don't agree with AI in a box where you don't understand the algorithm. And therefore, we've got really robust AI governance processes with people insight to make sure it's implemented in a responsible way. And obviously, with almost 50 years worth of building assessments, even with a new technology like AI, obviously we know what good looks like, and we know how to ensure integrity in both the science and the software. And we set a really high bar, because actually getting this wrong is very impactful. And I do fear that some companies don't have the same level of robustness, which is why we're probably seeing increased legislation in some of the countries around the world to make sure that AI is being developed and deployed ethically.
Yeah, completely agree with you. And when it comes to AI services, there are so many out there now that allow candidates to spam recruiters and employers by auto-applying for 100 jobs a week. And then on the flip side, some employers are using AI to analyse the candidate's facial expression, tone, body language, and so much more. It's almost like both have got their own AI and pitting them against each other. And with AI playing this increasing role in recruitment, I'm curious, what impact are you seeing AI having on the future of recruitment, particularly in evaluating everything from candidates' potential rather than just their current skills?
No, you're right. It's been included in lots of different places. And we're of the view that organizations want the ability to toggle AI off or toggle AI on, because it's not applicable for all markets, and it's not applicable for all situations as well. And as you rightly said, in the recruitment process, there's other things that AI has been useful, which I think is helpful. We have this term called proctoring. So making sure that the person on the camera is the right person, making sure that when they turn up for the job, they are the same person. For years, recruitment processes, people have tried to cheat in one way or form. So AI does enable us, particularly from a digital experience, some very effective ways to make sure that doesn't happen. But I think also in the recruiting process for AI, I think that the challenge with pure AI driven models, whether that be for recruiting or talent management, is that they're interpreting or inferring data based on what it's been fed. So it's only as good as the data that you're feeding in. So what we found is, if I'm, let's say, working in a call center as an example, I've been working in a call center for 3 years. That was my first job. It probably would infer from that my interpersonal skills are quite good. It might infer that I'm reasonably good at problem solving, but it can't infer anything about my potential. It doesn't know that I could have the skills to be a developer. It only knows that I've got the skills to do something similar to a call center role. And I think that's the challenge for most of the AI-driven engines. That's not to say that what they do, they can't get so far to a certain amount of way down the process of helping recruitment. But when it comes to the actual decision, you need something that's actually measuring what it's designed to measure, which is where really assessments come in, because they're proven to be able to effectively measure individuals' potential and their ability and their skill. And also when you combine with data sources, that gets even more and more effective. So what we're seeing is organizations are using AI to interpret data. And if that's a recruitment process, it could be their CV or their resume, picking information out of that, their background, but then having assessments when it comes to making a decision to actually measure what they want in the individual, and then could also stand behind that as well, because in many markets, recruitment and offering roles is regulated in terms of how they can go about. So I think the combination of the two will be the future, the combination of AI as well as assessment.
And I'm very conscious that much of our interview today has been looking forward. And yet when I was doing a little research on you before you came on the podcast, I learned you've got rich experience with so many big companies from Hewlett-Packard, Microsoft and beyond. And I'm curious, if I ask you to look back, the Steve Jobs quote, you can't join up the dots looking forward. If you look back, how has that experience influenced your approach to leadership at SHL, particularly in the realm of talent acquisition and development? I suspect there are a few synergies there, but what have you learned?
Yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate to work for some great businesses and learned a huge amount about people along the way. I mean, I think the first one that I learned was, at the end of the day, people are your most important asset. It's an overused phrase, but I genuinely believe it, because if you haven't got great people, you haven't got a great business. There's very few businesses that can operate completely independent of great people. So don't compromise. Don't compromise on having the best people you can find, because that will directly impact your performance and the performance of your business. But there's lots and lots of leadership lessons that I've learned as well, which is things like, don't be afraid to hire people who are better than yourself. It means you raise your game and you surround yourself with people, that's often diverse people as well, that have different diverse perspectives, views of what you do. It just makes you better as a leader. I think the other thing around hiring as well you mentioned is, and I learned this quite a lot at Microsoft, is taking calculated hiring risks can pay back hugely. A lot of organizations look at hiring and try and do what they think is a safe hire into a role, but that can only get you so far. Sometimes taking a little bit more of a risk can get you further. And again, I think that's about really understanding the risk that you're taking and making sure you've put the right safety mechanisms in around it. But that was certainly something at Microsoft that we did a lot. The other thing is, from a leadership perspective, is being authentic. Again, it used to get talked about quite a bit, and it's come back again now. But, being yourself at work, you're at work a long time. And if you're trying to be somebody else, that's going to be quite tiring. So being authentic and also having fun, I think, is really important. We're working 5 days a week. A lot of people work hard. A lot of people turn up to do a great job. Enjoying yourself at work is also an important part of what we all do.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. The first part reminds me of the old saying, if you're the smartest person in a room, you're in the wrong room. And
exactly.
Also, the importance of having fun. And as we finish the podcast, it's time for me to have a bit of fun with you now as well. And I always ask my guests one of two questions. We have a Spotify playlist where you can add a song that means something to you, where our listeners can check out. Guilty pleasures are allowed, or a book that we can add to an Amazon wish list that you recommend. All I'm going to ask is, what would you like to leave and why?
I will leave a song with you, if that's okay.
Oh, yes.
And actually picking one, for somebody who loves music, I really love my music. Picking one is hard. So I'm going to pick one of my favorites, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of, everybody has their sort of deep and meaningful songs and their happy songs. And this is one of my happy songs. And hopefully it's not on your playlist. I haven't checked, but Imagine Dragons, I'm on Top of the World. And the reason why I say that is family is really important to me. And we go on an annual sort of family ski holiday. And this is kind of our ski song, which is obviously appropriate when you're on the top of a mountain. So that's one reason. And the other reason is it reminds me of those kind of days at work where you've just come back and you feel like you've had a great day. You've achieved some great things. You've made a difference and you feel like you're on top of the world.
Yeah, absolutely love that. What a great choice. Make sure we do a big fist bump in the air like Judd Nelson at the end of the Breakfast Club. But I will get that added to our Spotify playlist. And obviously, we covered a lot of ground today. So if anybody wants to find out more about you, your team, anything we discussed, where would you like to point everyone listening to find out more information about SHL?
Yeah, visit the website or connect with us in any which way. You'll find us on all the social medias as well.
Well, for me, this was one of those podcast episodes that had it all. We covered the social and business impact of early career recruitment, how internal recruitment can solve some of those critical talent problems, especially in this tech talent shortage that we've got, but also remembering to hire beyond skills for tech talent and celebrate the value of diversity in the workplace, and even left me with a great tune. Thanks for joining me today, Andy.
Thanks, Neil.
So how can your organisation leverage the insights from today's discussion to ultimately build a stronger and more resilient workforce? I think, as Andy highlighted today, the key lies in embracing a comprehensive approach to talent acquisition and management, one that prioritises early career recruitment, internal mobility, and the development of human-centric skills. And SHL's evolution into this talent intelligence platform underscores the importance of using data-driven insights to guide these efforts to ensure that organisations not only attract top talent, but also retain and develop it effectively. And finally, reflecting on this conversation today, consider how your company can integrate these strategies and how it can address the challenges of this global talent shortage and the rapidly changing demands of the job market. Maybe try embracing the potential of AI and to enhance your recruitment processes, but always ensure that it's used transparently and ethically. That was the big message from me. But what about your experiences, your insights, your concerns, the things that excite you, the things that keep you awake at night? Let me know. techblogwriter@outlook.com. Send me a DM on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, just @Neil C. Hughes. I'd love to keep this conversation going because I think it's something that impacts each and every one of us. But that is it for today. So thank you for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.